Donald Trump is due to face sentencing today on 34 felony counts. It was back in May of last year when a Manhattan jury found Trump guilty of falsifying business records in connection with those hush money payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels. The original sentencing date was put off until after the election. But since then, Trump has gone from former president to president-elect. And now, in only 10 days, he will be inaugurated for his second term. Trump asked the Supreme Court to intervene to delay sentencing again, but they didn't take him up on it. So he will attend sentencing today, albeit virtually. Criminal defense attorney Jeremy Saland is with me to talk more about this now. Jeremy, good morning. The Supreme Court, they didn't bail him out this time. Why not?
No, they said he can handle this in the regular course of his appeal. And then number two, they indicated this is not some substantial burden as he wants you to believe, or his counsel did, on his ability to proceed and transition into the presidency and those duties. It was pretty clear and pretty concise. And I'll have the listeners know and watchers know the person who made that decision, Judge Sotomayor, actually happened to be a former Manhattan prosecutor. So really full circle.
It is really full circle. So Judge Merchan has indicated that Trump would most likely be sentenced to what's called an unconditional discharge. Can you explain that to us?
Right. So generally speaking, when you're sentenced, there's a condition to that sentence. What might that be? Well, if it's not incarceratory, it could be community service, probation, a fine. None of that exists here. It's solely you are done at the time that you are sentenced. Nothing else needs to be done. It is over. You are now a convicted felon, period.
But didn't the Supreme Court rule that presidents are basically immune from prosecution?
Well, you have the United States Supreme Court. That's the law of the land in part. But you also have New York State, which has its own rules and its own laws. They can't just supersede the Supreme Court. But if there is an issue of immunity, take that up on an appeal. Challenge that on an appeal. You know, it was a little overstated on the part of Trump's team, but that is still out there, an opportunity. There will be an appeal. 30 days to file, 6 months to perfect that appeal.
Well, you said the magic word. I was going to say, we know that Trump and his team are nothing if not a litigious bunch. So what do you expect to come from an appeal?
You know, it'll be interesting, but the way it works now is it goes back to the state system, meaning it will go up to the appellate division first department, ultimately, possibly to the Court of Appeals. So that's going to be the process. But Judge Merchan was very methodic in the way he handled this. He was very good at the way he did his job and making sure the law was limited and done in the right way and presented in the right way. Grand jury minutes were reviewed. So this, I think, is done properly. We'll see. The Court of Appeals may ultimately make that decision, but right now, convicted felon.
And then where does it go from there? Talk to me a little bit about that. If he's a convicted felon, is he allowed to vote? Can he carry a gun? What sort of parameters are there around him now?
I mean, there certainly are many. And I think one of the interesting things will be is you have clearance issues, right? You know, generally you or I, if we had a felony conviction, we're not working for the FBI and getting I'll use the term secret, but we're not getting these documents and these materials and access, traveling in and out of countries. But I would tend to think, frankly, from a practical standpoint, as the president of the United States of America, a lot of those will be waived. This is unprecedented and unpresidential, but I expect a lot will be waived. For him, for all intents and purposes, I think he'll live his regular life and pursue and proceed as if it didn't happen. But still a convicted felon. Still a convicted felon.
Still a convicted felon. I thought you were going to say, but anything can happen in the world of Trump, which we all know.
That's true.
Does this set a precedent in any way about how presidents or other elected officials can be treated by the court system in the future? It feels like it gives people a little bit of carte blanche when they see this.
Yeah, I think it sends a great message, and that message, let me take that back. This is a terrible day as an American, no matter whether you're blue or you're red. But I think it says a message that no one is above the law. You still have to behave and follow the law. Now, granted, there's still this immunity issue that was put out by the Supreme Court in terms of how bold and wide it is in scope. But people say, oh, it's only a felony. He didn't go to prison. He's still a convicted felon, and that's the message. There's no one no one, I would imagine, would say, oh, it's only a felony. Oh, it's only a couple dozen counts of a felony. There's ramifications. You can make no mistake about it. He did not appeal and did not fight the way he did if it wasn't serious and there weren't ramifications and consequences. So it sends a good but sad message about law and order.
You always help us understand all of this legalese. Criminal defense attorney Jeremy Saland, thank you for being here this morning.
My pleasure.